Hey all, this is Tonie's Review Mom with my Miss Rachel Comprehensive Tonie Review. I've got mixed feelings about this one, not gonna lie. I was prepared to hate this Tonie from the moment I googled Ms. Rachel and got a 10-second sound clip of one of her YouTube videos. Full disclosure here, I am neurospicy and I will actually dislike people from the sound of their voices, so that's a thing. Ms. Rachel's voice when initially addressing children drives me insane with the sugary, sweet sing-song that begins her messages. However, once I got into the Tonie and the songs, I could see the appeal. Ms. Rachel varies her speaking speed, tone, and pitch in the precise way to keep the attention of an easily distracted audience. Her content, I'd guess aimed at the 12 to 30 month crowd, is well designed for that audience. The mix of familiar songs, Wheels on the Bus, Old MacDonald, Bingo, near the beginning of the Tonie invites children to listen on to possibly less familiar songs if, like me, you've never engaged with Ms. Rachel content. The Tonie itself is designed with children's engagement in mind. Ms. Rachel offers many prompts for children to speak aloud as the Tonie goes along. The format references the Tonie box itself, and Ms. Rachel invites her listeners to go on sound field trips to 3 different locations: a farm, a school, and a big city. To introduce each section of the Tonie, she has her audience listen to a sound and identify it as a clue to where they're going next, then invites them to come along on a pretend journey to the location. Ms. Rachel narrates the steps of the pretend journey, then dialogues with either Herbie or Mr. Aaron before launching into a series of songs, loosely or closely connected to the imaginary location. Some songs have more of a lead-in dialogue on the track before they launch, but each one will play at the beginning of the track it's listed on, so a child can choose to skip the dialogue and just hear the song or songs desired by slapping the side of the Tonie box to skip tracks in the usual way. The songs are carefully woven through with context. This is not a standard one song after another track list, but a carefully thought out imaginary journey for the listener, including opportunities for the audience to dance and act things out. Here are a few snippets, one from each sound field trip in order from the farm to the school to the big city.
Yes, that's a chicken. Chickens have feathers that make them so fluffy. Can you cluck like a chicken with me? Cluck, 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 cluck.
Yup, 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 yup. Whee!
I wonder who makes that noise.
It's Herbie.
Yes, that's our friend Herbie. Hi, Herbs. Let's listen. What makes that sound? It's a bell. But what kind of bell is it? Do you hear those kids playing? The bell must be a school bell. That means we're going to school for our sound field trip. Let's all pretend we're on a bus and we're going to school together. Let's go to Help to talk to a grown-up when you feel sad. It's okay to feel sad, and it's okay to have big feelings. Sometimes you're worried. Sometimes you're mad. Sometimes you feel afraid or feel like crying. Sometimes you're sad. Big feelings are okay. It's okay to have big feelings.
I would say that this will be a hit with fans of Ms. Rachel, as long as you weren't expecting her older material. I'm sorry folks, but Icky Sticky Bubblegum did not make this track list. And a fine listen for families with younger children who may or may not know Ms. Rachel at all. While I am totally clueless as to who or what Herbie is or why Mr. Aaron pops up at random places where Ms. Rachel is like some kind of incredibly helpful stalker, I don't really feel like I'm missing anything that would add to the imaginary journeys played out on this Tonie. As an adult listener with an initial bias to dislike this Tonie, I'm reluctantly impressed by this piece and the artistic ability displayed. These people have really lovely singing voices, along with the effort and planning made in the understanding of the developmental stages of young children. Would recommend for families with children under 3 and waddler toddler classrooms especially. For a full synopsis of the tracks, keep listening. Otherwise, see you next time. Track 1 is Welcome. Ms. Rachel welcomes her listeners, talks about the Tonie box, and invites them on a series of sound field trips. This track showcases the sugary, sickly sweet voice that triggers my instant antipathy. If this was the only sound sample of this Tonie, then I'd be skipping it for sure. I do think, however, that this one is worth a further listen, so carry on a bit longer. Track 2 is the I'm So Happy song. Ms. Rachel sings about being happy to be with her listeners. Track 3, Episode 1, Field Trip to the Farm. Ms. Rachel tells her listeners that the box will play a sound that's a clue about where she's going on her sound field trip. She rhymes with, "What's in the box? What could it be? Do you want to listen to a sound with me?" And then we hear mooing. Ms. Rachel leads the listeners in pretending to get on a tractor to ride to the farm. Along the way, she encourages them to make various animal noises and talks about the ride. We meet Herbie as well and his horse Hayden. Track 4, Old MacDonald Had a Farm. This version goes through the standard pig, horse, chicken, sheep, duck. I will note that the duo of Ms. Rachel and Herbie are pleasant and tuneful to listen to, and I enjoyed the light harmonies they added to the song. The banjo played was light and not obnoxious. Track 5, Bingo. This song has a very quick transition and launches right into the song after brief mention on the track before of the farmer's dog. Following the song, Ms. Rachel describes the weather and that it's beginning to rain. She encourages her listeners to open up their pretend umbrellas and throws in some comments about how she doesn't mind sharing her umbrella with her friend. Then she notes a spider out in the rain, which transitions us to track 6, the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Ms. Rachel sings the song 2 times through, no special versions or anything added to this simple tune. After the song and the rain has ended, Ms. Rachel's friend Aaron shows up. He and Ms. Rachel note the rainbow after the rain. Bringing us to track 7, I Love a Rainbow. This song names the colors in the rainbow and then repeats the phrase, "I love a rainbow," quite often. After the rainbow song, Ms. Rachel and Herbie go into the garden and talk about the various colors of the fruits and vegetables they find as they prepare for a picnic. Ms. Rachel again offers prompts for her listeners to answer questions, and then she spots some rabbits and transitions into the next track, which is track 8, Hop Little Bunnies. This is a movement song designed to transition children between active and calm energy. Children are encouraged to hop, skip, stop, sleep, and repeat. Following this song, the friends finish getting ready for their picnic and transition to the next track, track 9, Hungry Ants. This is a silly song counting backward from 3 to 1 as the hungry ants each accidentally stumble into the pepper on the picnic table, which is always a mistake. Following the song, Ms. Rachel does a quick recap of the visit to the farm, bringing us to track 10, episode 2, Field Trip to the School. Ms. Rachel repeats the rhyme about listening to this sound, and then the Tonie box plays a classic school bell sound clip. Ms. Rachel indicates that our listeners will go to school on a bus and leads them in an imaginary trip. Of course, that brings us to track 11, The Wheels on the Bus. This song is your typical version of the favorite tune. The verses sung are the original Wheels, plus horn, wipers, doors, babies, mommies, which say shh, and daddies, which say I love you, people, driver, and then a reprise of the Wheels on the Bus verse. After that song, Ms. Rachel and Herbie chat back and forth about why one goes to school and some of the things you might learn, like counting, bringing us to track 12, the counting song. The actual, quote, counting song is just a jazzy chant from 1 to 20. Following this song/chant are almost 3 minutes of talk by Ms. Rachel, who guides her listeners through a typical day in an early learning center, including play, circle time, center, snack, etc. She moves her dialogue to making friends, and the next track begins, track 13, I Could Be Your Friend song. This song is a great social emotional tool for reminding children how to make or respond to an invitation to play. It walks through a tiny bit of imagining this kind of interaction and sends a very positive message about inclusion and playing together in both imaginary play and physical games. After the friendship song, Ms. Rachel invites her listeners to visit the school library and does about 35 seconds of chatting about it, leading into the next track, track 14, the ABC song. This version is the typical one ending in "Next time won't you sing with me" and is sung through just one time. After this, Herbie mentions that he's excited to read his new book he's borrowed from the library, but actually he cannot read. So then we move to the next track, track 15, the phonics song. This track goes through the alphabet one letter at a time and says the name of the letter, a word beginning with that letter, and then the most common sound that the letter would make. For example, M, muffin, mmm. Following the song, Ms. Rachel quickly recaps the trip to the school, and then we move to track 16, episode 3, field trip to the big city. Once again, Ms. Rachel repeats the rhyme about listening to the sound, and then the Tonie box plays the sound of horns and vehicle traffic. Ms. Rachel indicates that her listeners will go to the big city. She walks them through pretending to drive a car, honk the horn, vroom vroom. Mr. Aaron shows up in time to pretend to go to the big city with Ms. Rachel and her listeners. Ms. Rachel marvels at the things you can see in the big city and notes that tall buildings use elevators to get people up and down, which brings us to track 16, Take the Elevator Song. This song is about living on the 57th floor of a tall building and taking an elevator up and down. The song repeats the same simple lyrics of the chorus faster and faster, a total of 3 times. Transitioning out of the song, Ms. Rachel talks about what you can see from the top of a tall building. She points out a large park and invites her listeners to go explore it with her. Visiting the big park, Ms. Rachel talks about all the things she sees and the experience of getting ice cream in the park. After getting her cone, Ms. Rachel drops her ice cream and talks through the big feelings like sadness she might have if she couldn't eat her ice cream. After a short transition there, that Big Feelings song begins on track 18, Big Feelings. This song talks about big feelings and how they're okay, and the singer, in this case Ms. Rachel, is here to stay with your big feelings. List a few feelings: happy, sad, silly, excited, angry, proud, etc. Next, Ms. Rachel meets Herbie while walking in the park. She mentions that friends can help you feel better when you're feeling sad. While walking, Ms. Rachel sees a lake inside of the park and walks the listeners through imagining putting on life jackets and rowing the boat, bringing us to track 19, Row, Row, Row Your Boat. This song is extremely short, with 2 repetitions of the classic verse, with the second version, the one that ends with, if you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream, ah! I'll note she doesn't actually scream, she does a very low-key ah. Herbie mentions fish in the lake, and Ms. Rachel swiftly transitions to the next song on track 20, Bubble, 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 Pop. Each verse, to the tune of 10 Little Indian Boys, lists a number of fish and then a color. 2 little red fish swimming in the water, bubble, 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 pop. And this goes from 1 fish to 5 fish. Herbie wonders what other animals you can see in the big city, and he, Ms. Rachel, and Mr. Aaron go on an imaginary visit to the city zoo. Bringing us to track 21, Walking at the Zoo. Mr. Aaron sings a tour of the zoo, mentioning the various animals in an old-fashioned style of singing, which is, to me, reminiscent of a musical in the era of Hello, Dolly. Next, the trio talks about favorite animals, landing on the lazy lion. Ms. Rachel mentions briefly that sleep and naps are important, and then they transition to Mr. Aaron singing track 22, Lazy Lion. A slow, jazzy track with some brassy wah-wahs, talking about how the lazy lion enjoys sleeping his day away. Ms. Rachel invites her listeners to go see the alligators then, and begins guiding her listeners through a very short practice of what she calls alligator breaths. Listeners open their arms like a big alligator mouth and take deep breaths twice. After this, Herbie asks Mr. Aaron what animal he would like to visit, and Mr. Aaron indicates a desire to visit the elephant, moving us on to the next track, 23, If You Should Meet an Elephant. Mr. Aaron sings a very short song about meeting an elephant and asking it to dance. I will note that this tune is 99 bottles of beer on the wall. So there you have it. After the song, Ms. Rachel recaps the 3 sound field trips, talks about how fun learning is, and then reminds her listeners that they are great kids. Track 24, Bye Bye Friends. It's a couple of lines to the tune of Good Night Ladies. Ms. Rachel says bye-bye after the song, and a short musical jingle ends the Tonie. Thanks for sticking with us so far, and see you next time.